you're seeing is it sticks around the Bahamas tonight, early Monday. There's Grand Bahama, and is extending up the coast like that.
Right, exactly, just because that kind of sticks out there. And then we go farther north.
Right, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have friends, relatives in the Southeast getting calls from the Carolinas saying, how you doing down there? And then up there, they're nervous too, because depending on how close this tracks to the coasts of Georgia, the Carolinas, even the mid-Atlantic, I mean, that's really going to make all the difference between them really getting pounded and then maybe not so much. Should the system move closer offshore, taking the right path on the right side of the cone path.
And they're like us. They're going to be in the cone, in the cone, in the cone, in the cone for days and days and days and days. It's like, you go crazy with the cone after a while. All right, here, this is what's really important, and this shows you why we have the watches and warnings for our counties.
Right, consider the wind field. The red color, that sustained hurricane winds and hurricane gusts in the orange. You can see how those fan out. And then the tropical storm winds, those fan out in the yellow color. And we take this in time and show how it all fits into the cone and even spreads outside the cone.
And we can see how close the tropical storm force winds come to us. So you saw them approach on Monday, so that Monday afternoon, the idea is, and don't look at this as a fixed line here, it's just to give you an idea of tropical storm force winds approaching Broward County. Miami-Dade is just farther away, and they're already impinging on Palm Beach County, Martin County, on up towards St. Lucie County. That's why the alerts are more up this way, and only we have that possibility with a watch down here. All right, but that's Monday morning. Now, watch this line come forward. It's coming a little closer Monday evening. Now we're overnight, Monday night, Tuesday morning. That's about as close as it gets. But look this all up in here. See, they've got the hurricane force gusts right at the coast, and just the slightest deviation. I mean, we know we can't forecast whether it's going to be there or it's going to be there, right? But that much difference makes a significant difference in the amount of wind that you get, and just a little difference down here, and now the tropical storm force winds are over Broward on the fringe of the storm. So that's why we have the watches and warnings in effect. And then Tuesday, it's pulling away, but look at the coast, because the hurricane's expanding. So look at the coast up here. Hurricane force gusts, at the very least, are along the coast.
And as it's pulling away Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, our winds start to come down. So
yes.
we'll feel the difference.
And I guess by Wednesday, we're drastically better, right? But hot.
We are.
Yes. Usually
Definitely.
After a hurricane, it gets hot.
Yes.
All right, so here are the models. So the orange one is the European model. We're going to put them all together here. And remember, we don't have a spaghetti plot for the European, so just bear that in mind, but we do for the others. So the sort of good thing from a confidence standpoint for the moment anyway is that the European is right underneath all these other ones, and they all kind of agree on this track just north of Grand Bahama now. So that's with these new models, that's a little farther away from us. So that's good. All right, and then we move forward in time, and they get a little bit divergent here, but still by Tuesday afternoon, offshore and moving away. And then we go on to Wednesday afternoon, and it's well north. And then we get, more uncertainty. So that's why the cone gets wider as we got in time, because there's more errors in the forecast. Right? So that's at least for the ones nearby us, the models are consistent. All right, here's that energy in the water, and watch the winds from Irma push the ocean down this way against the Gulf Stream going that way. So this is really going to kick up the waves, and you're going to see that red, which is very high waves, pushing south, and even the purples, see off of Broward County, and then pushing down to Miami-Dade County tomorrow afternoon. And then overnight, that's the peak. Look, you have these really huge waves with the Gulf Stream and the wind and the swells more than wind, really, from Dorian working against each other. So bottom line is that we have some possibility of some minor storm surge, maybe as high as 3 feet above the normally dry beach, and some places in the canals and in Port Everglade that are very low-lying may have to deal with that. This is worst case kind of idea. Yeah, reasonable worst case is what they call that, of 1 to 3 feet in Broward. But look how much it jumps up in Palm Beach County. And this is why in Palm Beach County, where they have to prepare for the possibility of up to 6 feet, that they've ordered evacuations of the coastal barrier islands there. And then we get to the wind, and the direction of wind is really important.
Right, that offshore component, which is what we'll be in. Instead of the winds coming from the Atlantic toward us from Broward and Miami-Dade, what you'll see is that northwest or to west-northwest-west flow as we go out through time, all following around Dorian and just how it moves. And that's a good thing, because this is not going to be a recipe for storm surge for the East Coast, at least from the Atlantic.
Right, not for coming this way. I was reminded of Hurricane Sandy. Now, I was on the Weather Channel when Hurricane Sandy, so I wasn't here. And I remember, though, in Fort Lauderdale, it was very, very bad at the beach of Fort Lauderdale, right? I mean, we saw all that energy coming south, that strong swell coming south, and we're fearful for Broward County beaches because of that. It's a lot of energy scouring the beaches going south and maybe into Miami-Dade as well. But also, we had in Miami Beach, we had bayside flooding of Miami Beach. Have been elevated, and wall in that new system, but the part that isn't elevated, there could be some flooding on the bayside, although it's not expected to be real threatening kind of flooding, but just keep that in mind. And in the Keys, it's a little bit different, because in the Keys you have Florida Bay pushing the water into Florida Bay, and that far east end of Florida Bay, the water kind of builds up there. You guys that are down there know about that. The other thing is offshore, dangerous seas offshore, where you have the winds with the Gulf Stream here, and then remember the swell is against the Gulf Stream there. So all this combination of huge energy all pushing against each other. Obviously, nobody should be in a boat. The seas will be extremely, extremely dangerous. All right, so Betty's going to be back with more on the local weather. I know you have a lot to talk about, and we've had heavy rain around here already today, kind of outer bands from Dorian.
And there's more of that to come, in fact. So we'll jump into that in just a second, but let's check in with Calvin and Nicole.
Okay, we look forward to your forecast. Thanks a lot there, Betty and Brian.
Right now, we're going to go to Ross Palumbo. He's live at a special needs shelter in Palm Beach County. Ross.
Well, Calvin and Nicole, Palm Beach County taking this very seriously. They have ordered mandatory evacuations in 2 zones. Zone A, which is mobile homes, low-lying areas, and Zone B, which is everything along the beach and intercoastal. Right here, this is the special needs shelter. Only one of these open right now. It used to be that you needed a reservation to get into this, but now they say we are well within the time that if you have a special needs person, someone that has a medical condition that needs supervision, electricity for medical equipment, just bring them here to the Palm Beach County Fairgrounds and they will try to get you in. 458 beds on the inside of this facility, and they do have room. It looks about a quarter full from what I can see on the inside. We have some video of all the people arriving here. The organizer of this area tells me that they're actually getting more people inside that they expected to come, but they still have room for more. We caught up with one woman, a 97-year-old woman who has lived through many hurricanes, including Andrew, as she was coming into the shelter just a few minutes ago. Take a listen.
You'd be 97, ma'am?
I say, when I got to be 90, I thought, wow, and now 97.
You've been through a few hurricanes.
Oh, yeah.
What are you thinking about this one?
What, this one? We would have better off home, but he has to come because of me, because I need the oxygen.
Yeah. Are you concerned, or you've been through this before and you're pretty confident everything's going to be okay, or how are you feeling?
The people here take such good care of you, but I'd rather be home.
Well, everyone would rather be home, of course, but if you need special care, if you need electricity, if you have medical equipment, this is the place to be at the Palm Beach County Fairgrounds. Dee Zur is one of the people that came in just a few minutes ago. How you doing, Dee? So you left your home in Lake Worth. Why did you decide to come here to the shelter?
Because of medical issues and I need electricity.
Okay, now you've been inside. You already checked in. How's it looking inside?
Good.
Yeah, no, that's it.
It looks good, yeah.
They have beds in there. They have people, nurses.
It's very, very well equipped.
Yeah, and so do you feel safe in there to ride out the storm, or what's going through your mind at this point?
I'm hoping it turns around and goes to.
We're all hoping that. Yes.
Yeah.
But you. Special needs. There's also another one, a pet shelter that is on a first come, first serve basis. And the other shelter that we were at just a little while ago has 5,000 beds. They have room for 5,000 people, and only about 30 to 40 people were there. So now's the time to get to shelters and make sure you're safe. It is not too early. And just remember, bring with you clothing and food, and at the general shelter, something to sleep on to make yourself comfortable. For now, that's the very latest live in Palm Beach County. Nicole and Calvin, back to you.
Oh, just some great advice from Palm Beach County. We thank you so much, Ross. We'll be checking back in with you through our special coverage today. Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, with people in Palm Beach under a hurricane watch, they want to be more safe than sorry in that area.
And tropical storm warnings as well.
That's right. So right now we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes with more updates on tracking Hurricane Dorian.
I'm Rick Sanchez. The BrandsMart USA Labor Day sale
is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
The 24/7 streaming news source, ABC News. Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video.
That's a grenade.
Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go
We're
there
trying
now.
to put this fire out right now.
With ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush. We're taking it, wow. And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here on ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it, live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, watch ABC News Live right now and anytime.
Beach.
And your weather authority, of course, here. Hurricane specialist Brian Norcross is here. Chief certified meteorologist Betty Davis standing by with every advisory, every warning, everything happening in the weather department.
And those advisories are coming down every hour at this time, so they are going to talk about a new advisory. But we also have a team of reporters fanned out all across South Florida, covering every angle of Hurricane Dorian, where it may make landfall aboard the eastern coastal area of the So we're going to check it out with our Betty Davis and Brian Norcross to find out what they are learning.
For the display, Brian. I'll just bring you in for just a second, just to talk about what we've seen happening since that landfall happened at 12:40 this afternoon and the advisory that we have out there now. Is there anything different about what you're saying? Obviously, the stats are not different.
Right, not yet. The motion is very slow, and we're but it's definitely on that track like that. So we'll just try and keep the wobbles out of our mind. It's heading for Grand Bahama Island, no question about that. And it's in Marsh Harbor. They're getting that backside of the eye now. So it's no doubt extreme conditions here. And this is what you were talking about on the visible. This is like a photograph from space. We're seeing some clouds in the eye we didn't see before. I think that's because at the surface of the ocean, the winds here are interacting with the slightly hilly country. The land of the islands can be up to 25 feet high, and so that's a little disruptive, but the circulation is still very, very strong, although I'm a little interested in this dark space out in here. So
I see that.
We'll continue to watch that, and that might be some indication of some dry air or something disruptive in the storm. So we'll have to see. We'll have to get the analysis on exactly. You know what that is? Now that I stand back and look at it, it looks very different than when you're standing right next to it. That's the stadium effect of the eye. Isn't that amazing? So let me stop this because that is just stunning. Okay. So now it's a little easier. So there's the eye there. Mm-hmm. Now this is the eye at the top of the hurricane. And there's a slope from the top of the hurricane on down into the eye. And the reason we're getting this is because the sun, now we're getting late in the afternoon, the sun is coming from this direction. So the hurricane sticking up into the atmosphere is casting, the clouds at the top are casting a shadow on this side of the stadium. So it's like watching a football game and being on the shady side of the stadium versus being on the sunny side of the stadium. That's what we're seeing there. So that was kind of blowing my mind there for a second, what's going on. But now when we put it in motion and that that's a funnel that you're looking down into, now it makes sense. Right now you can see the sun going down and putting the shadow on this side of the stadium. And it's unbelievable what's going on not that far away from us right now, Betty.
Right, and it really still speaks to the power of this hurricane with those maximum sustained winds at 185 miles per hour. And in case you missed the timing for that initial landfall for the Bahamas, it happened at 12:40 p.m. Elbow Cay, Abacos, Category 5 hurricane, maximum sustained winds at landfall 185, pressure 911 millibars, and as we just showed you, not much changed since as that eye wall continues to batter parts of the island. All right, so here's a look at the projected path. This is the close-up view of South Florida. I just want to reiterate that Broward and Miami-Dade, not in the cone. Keys, not in the cone. There's that part of Palm Beach County that is in the cone, but Broward County, we do have a tropical storm watch, meaning tropical storm conditions possible within 48 hours. And we'll talk about the timing on all of this. And it also means tropical storm conditions, winds 40 plus miles per hour. So note, we're shaded in the orange in Broward County, right there along eastern Broward. And then outside of that and through Miami-Dade, we're in the yellow. So we may get a few 40 plus mile per hour gusts as Dorian makes that nearest approach, heading into, say, late Monday into Tuesday. But otherwise, we're going to be more concerned about the tropical storm conditions as far as our viewing area is concerned for Broward. And then, of course, as we look up the coast into Palm Beach County, there, a hurricane watch is in place. So 75 plus mile per hour winds possible there. Let's talk about the satellite and radar imagery and what we see in terms of Dorian. not only where it's making the landfall, but those outer bands, and then even some of the tropical downpours extending well beyond the eye of Dorian, and those downpours are lashing us. And we're going to go in and out of these downpours at times today. So here's that eye wall, the back part of it coming right over Marsh Harbor, where our Janice Fernandez is. Hopefully we can reconnect with her at some point, but she's going to be stuck in that for a while as the system is so slow moving. But those outer bands swinging all the way down toward Andros Island and over toward Nassau as well. And for us, sort of the outer fringes of tropical downpour. So I'll zoom into Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Right now, we've got some of the heavier rainfall occurring right around Aventura, say Surfside, Miami Beach, downtown Miami getting dampened up as well. Hialeah, rain coming into your area too. North Miami getting caught up in some of the thick of this, and it's moving from north down toward the south. Even for the Upper Keys, Key Largo right now, looking at some hefty downpours in your community too. So we knew this was going to be possible today as we tracked Dorian, as we talked about how the eye of the storm tropical downpours here, and that's exactly what we're seeing even around Key Largo. Now, talking about the rain potential for Dorian, even as we head over the next couple of days, we know we're going to have more tropical downpours. That likelihood for flooding for us, we'll just go with the generalized, localized flooding, but we're definitely going to get the rain, and at times, these downpours, they really do add up. Dorian, day by day, let's talk about the story of how our weather will look. Occasional breezy downpours today. Tomorrow, not only the potential for more of those downpours, but wind gusts as high as 40 to 50 miles per hour, especially as we're heading towards, say, late Monday, overnight into early Tuesday when Dorian's on its closest approach. So the slow-moving Dorian on Tuesday sets us up for gusts up to 50 miles per hour, some more downpours. But then during the afternoon, as Dorian starts to pull away, you see what happens? We expect those gusts to come down, and we might have some lingering downpours, but the weather should start to improve, especially in terms of the wind. West winds and plenty of heat to go around for the middle of the week. We'll talk a lot more about our local forecasts coming up here in a few minutes. Brian, do you want to jump back in? You have anything interesting to share?
Yeah, so Betty, I was just reading over what the National Hurricane Center is putting out, really talking about catastrophic events going on Great Abaco right now. Great Abaco being this island here, the main island in the Abacos. And two issues. One is, Michelle, say it again.
Oh, continue, Brian.
Oh, okay. All right. One issue is the storm surge. So the water coming around the center is flowing like this. It's being pushed like this. So in the shallow areas, the storm surge would be up to 23 feet above normally dry ground there. So we're talking about tremendously catastrophic storm surge, 2-story high buildings worth of ocean water piled up over the land in the shallower areas, especially in the deep places that are deeper offshore. You end up with bigger waves. Places that are shallower offshore, you end up with monstrous storm surge. So that's the first just catastrophic thing. The second is they're estimating the gusts in this circulation in this eye wall, which we're seeing right in there, in the eye wall at 220 miles per hour. So essentially what we have here is a giant tornado. And by the way, a tornado, a normal tornado, would be just a little part of the eye wall, where this circulation is, the eye wall is something like that around. So it's just the idea of having this tornado that's 40 or 50 miles across, as opposed to an average tornado that's 2 miles across. But with those kinds of winds, and maybe an EF4 tornado scale is 1 to 5, as well as like a hurricane scale. But they above 200 miles an hour, they're EF4s, and that's about what we have here. Because tornado wind speeds are in gusts, not in sustained winds like hurricane. So that's where, unfortunately, we are right now. Great Abaco is getting just, I'm afraid, demolished in most parts, and we just hope that people there are safe. So, Calvin Nicole,
all right, it's like a 1-2 punch as we talked about earlier. Brian and Betty, we'll get back to you in just a moment. Thanks a lot.
We have a couple of things we want to reiterate if you're just joining us about schools. Miami-Dade County, they have not made an official announcement yet as to all the schools. We only did get a note that some schools in Miami-Dade County will be closed on Tuesday. We also know that all Broward County schools will be closed on Tuesday as well, and some special needs shelters in Broward have opened. A note about bridges. All drawbridges in Broward County will be locked in the down position by 8 o'clock tonight, not allowing any pedestrians to cross over, just cars. So lockdown at 8 o'clock tonight.
And another travel advisory right now. Palm Beach International will cease to operate. All commercial air service tomorrow is going to be canceled. We advise the airport is advising that all travelers will not be able to fly out of there, and they are saying that all flights have been canceled, and any updates on service will be given as well. But do not plan to shelter at Palm Beach International. I said it is not a county shelter. Of course, they have 7 shelters open already.
And we also got a message from our Michael Putney. He is at the Broward Emergency Operations Center, the EOC. We were expecting a news conference from them at around 4 o'clock. There is a slight delay, but Michael is telling us that right now 3 special needs shelters are open in Broward, but no general population shelters. So people with special needs who have registered will be contacted. Again, 3 special needs shelters will be open. We'll keep watching, and as soon as that news conference happens, we'll bring it to you.
And we just got an update right now that Miami-Dade Schools is going to actually have an update as of 4 o'clock as to if or when they will open schools coming up on Tuesday. Let's go to Terrell Fournier right now. He is in a mobile home park in Boynton Beach, and we know, Terrell, that officials are warning people in low-lying areas and also in mobile home parks to try to evacuate if they can.
And this mobile home community is called Briny Breezes. It is under what we consider a double threat. It sits in Boynton Beach, of course, just east of A1A, but it is an oceanfront mobile home park. In fact, if you look behind me, the ocean is just on the other side of this community center that you see behind me. That is also part of this mobile home community. This area is under a mandatory evacuation, and from what we can tell, folks here are listening. But let's get to this video, because we spotted a number of families collecting some belongings from their homes, loading it up into their cars, items they'll need for the next several days, along with some irreplaceable items like precious photos, documents, medications, things of that nature. No one we spoke with was willing to take a chance with this storm. This mobile home park has been here for decades, so it has withstood the test of time, but there have been scares in the past. Most recently, Hurricane Irma 2 years ago. This is the last time that folks here evacuated en masse. Fortunately, no major damage during that storm, but throughout the day today, we have seen people placing shutters on their doors and windows, and that process is just about finished here. But the reality of what this storm can take, perhaps if it does get close enough to Palm Beach County, is really starting to settle into the minds of people who call this place home.
It's sad to think it could be gone, but what is Mother Nature? We can't do anything about it. Well, hopefully it will turn and go out to sea. I really don't want it to go to North Carolina or South Carolina either. Out to sea, that's where it should go.
She doesn't say it, but my father died here, and so it's very sentimental for all of us.
Sentimental indeed. That family that you just heard from, they don't know if they're walking away from their home, that they have known it for years, for the very last time. But it is a reality that that is really just kind of settling into their minds. They're not going to a shelter. They're actually going to stay with each other further inland. They're staying with family. But there are some people here in Palm Beach County who don't have that option and has to, resort to the shelters. There are 9 shelters that are open throughout Palm Beach County, including a special needs shelter and a pet-friendly shelter as well. We visited both of those places that opened their doors, earlier this afternoon. And when I say both, I do mean that special needs shelter and that pet-friendly shelter. It is business as usual there. Their doors are open. They are receiving people as fast as they can, but there did not appear to be any long lines or people who were waiting to get inside at this point. We know that the Palm Beach County officials, they were urging people not to wait until the last minute. They were even providing free shuttle service for people who were in need, but they did not want people waiting until perhaps Monday, because if the conditions deteriorate, they are not able to operate those shelters. But just to go over what is happening here in Palm Beach County, Zone A, and that is every mobile home park, whether it is close to the water or it is inland, it is under a mandatory evacuation. That is including areas that are considered low-lying areas. Zone B is also under an evacuation order, under a mandatory evacuation order as well. And Zone B includes some surge-prone areas as well. So those two areas are under a mandatory evacuation order. And from what we can tell, people are taking the storm very seriously. They are evacuating. They are leaving. But there are people who are still inside of their homes right now, taking their time because they know that they have the day to collect their belongings. But they are taking the storm very seriously. I'll send it back to you, Calvin and Nicole.
And that's certainly good to hear. And Terrell, just kind of talk for a minute about the conditions around you right now in terms of the wind blowing. It looks like it's picked up pretty good there.
You know, there is some mild wind. You can kind of tell in the trees right now, but certainly nothing significant. In fact, the sun is peeking through the clouds at this point. We've been in Palm Beach County for, several hours now, and we've seen no rain, nothing to indicate that a storm of this size is near South Florida. It's definitely a little more breezier than the average summer day here in South Florida, but nothing significant at this point.
Okay, Betty talked about some outer bands from Dorian coming through, and that's perhaps what you're dealing with right now, just some minor conditions. Okay, Terrell Forney live for us in Boynton Beach. Terrell, thanks a lot.
We are going to go now to our Andrew Perez. He's monitoring the situation north of us. He filed this report from Stewart as shutters and sandbags are in place ahead of the storm.
Well, for the last day or two, we've been over in Jupiter at a resort. That resort has since shut down. Mandatory evacuations in that area were going on, so we actually had to leave and start heading a little bit further north because a lot of the barrier islands, a lot of low-lying areas are being evacuated right now. As we speak, a lot of people are trying to figure out whether or not they're going to go into a shelter. So here we are in Stewart, in Martin County. You can see that there's a command center that's set up here right before the bridge that leads you to a really vulnerable barrier island right down there. And then the other thing that we're noticing up and down, which is something that we've seen all over the place, are the shutters, the sandbags. A common theme here, of course, you need the sandbags because, this is Florida. We are surrounded by water right now. So many people are concerned with the flooding, for one. The storm surge is expected to be a major issue. Again, just to reiterate, Palm Beach County, keep in mind, is under a tropical storm warning, which means you're going to have those tropical storm force winds expected within about 36 hours, maybe less. Most of the area is also under a hurricane watch as well. So that means the hurricane force conditions are possible within 48 hours. So as a result, you had all of these mandatory evacuations going on. They've been ordered for residential structures in what's called Zone A and B. That started at 1 p.m. Zone A, by the way, it includes things like mobile homes, substandard housing, low-lying areas that are prone to a whole lot of flooding. And then Zone B generally includes the barrier islands, which is where we were in Jupiter, land areas north and south of the Jupiter Inlet. And then also keep in mind they've got several shelters that are opening up so that these people can go and ride out the storm in some of those shelters. They are asking people who do have to evacuate to go to a shelter nearby. Don't go miles and miles away. Try to go to the closest one because they're trying to make room for everyone right now. Emergency officials are trying to clear the roadways for the most part. It's pretty much a ghost town, so there's not a lot of traffic. There aren't a lot of people out right now. They're going to continue to monitor this situation and try to get people off these barrier islands as quickly as possible, because the sooner everyone's in place and finds somewhere where they can ride out this storm, somewhere until Dorian passes, the better. That's the latest here in Stewart, though. I'm Andrew Perez, Local 10 News.
Okay, we've been covering the catastrophic storm as well. Dorian now a Cat 5, slamming into the Bahamas. But we do want to emphasize here that our Janice Fernandez is safe.
Yeah, and our colleague at ABC News, Marcus Moore, is also in Marsh Harbor, and he just filed this report.
I have seen utter devastation here in Marsh Harbor. We are surrounded by water with no way out. The storm surge taking over the terrain here, and I have seen trees that have been snapped, boats that have been destroyed, and roofs ripped off of buildings. Absolute devastation. There really are no words. It is pure hell here on Marsh Harbor, on the Abaco Islands, in the northern part of the Bahamas. We have also seen astonishing pictures. We have also seen astonishing moments where people, we caught them swimming to safety. I'm with producer Scott Schulman, who had to yell and convince people to get in the water. They were afraid to get in to swim. He told them that they had to, that their lives depended on it. Our producer Scott Schulman, I believe, helping to save lives and bring people to safety. There really are no words for what we have seen here and in this part of the Bahamas. I was not prepared to see this. We had been hearing that this Category 5 would have devastating winds, and the meteorologists, the experts, the officials, they were right. It is almost certain that this will be a very deadly event. Anyone who stayed in their homes in low-lying areas, I'm afraid, was underwater. I also met a man, his name is Robin Albury. He was inside his house when the water came rushing in after those just devastating winds. The water came rushing into his house. He said he had to get out. He thought that he could control his own body as he got into that water, and he could not. The water took him. He drifted for hundreds of feet. He ended up in the parking lot where we are at the hotel complex, and the window was down on our van that we parked in the parking lot next to the building. He got into the van. He says he drank some of the water out of a bottle that was inside, and that is when we saw him, this person, appearing from this deluge of water, this storm surge that we've heard was so dangerous, and he is now safe. That is what we see here. Again, it is utter devastation, and words cannot describe what we have seen here. And I'm with producer Scott Schulman and Chris Donato, and we have witnessed something that is truly historic, and we can't help but think and pray for the people who stayed in their homes, but this will no doubt be a deadly event.
Marcus Moore from ABC News and the Abacos. Let's listen in now to the mayor of Broward County, Mark
on Tuesday. Third is for those people that use our bus service. On Monday, there will be no regularly scheduled bus service. We will determine Tuesday as we get more information on the storm. Fourth, even though we are operating 24 hours a day here at the Emergency Operations Center, all other government buildings, including libraries and parks, will be closed on Tuesday. 5, we have currently today at 2 o'clock, we've opened 4 special needs shelters. Now these are for residents who have already registered with the county. If you have special needs and you have not registered, please call 311 to register. 6, while we are getting gas supplies at the port, we are asking residents to conserve fuel at this time. And lastly, the National Weather Service has finally issued a watch for Broward County for a tropical storm. While the hurricane is still heading westbound right now, we are hoping the predictions that it will turn north and stay and go north in the Atlantic Ocean. We hope those predictions will still come true. Our thoughts today are with everyone in the Bahamas who are dealing with this massive storm. With that, we will keep everybody posted. Thank you.
Yeah. Mark Bogan there, the mayor of Broward County, speaking from the EOC there, which is now operating at 24 hours, basically just giving people an update as to what to do there in town. And of course, there are certain areas, of course, that we know, Broward County schools, they have been shut down as of Tuesday, but also just giving us an update of what's happening there.
Right, and mentioning no buses on Monday, and also 4 special needs shelters. Earlier I had said 3, so 4 special needs shelters for, of course, electricity purposes for those individuals that are registered.
That's right. And Brian was just telling us that is not a reason to be alarmed that when they talk about opening up the shelters in Broward and Palm Beach County, just for those people who are really dependent on their electricity, they need to go there, and also people who need their medications as well. Right. So that needs to be refrigerated. So they need to have enough just to get through these next few days.
And another major concern is flying debris during a hurricane. And local 10 News reporter Hatzel Vela, he's outside a construction site in Pembroke Pines with more on this.
So some answers from the city of Pembroke Pines, a message clearly delivered to the residents of Pembroke Pines about the construction site that we talked about earlier here on Dykes and Pines Boulevard. This construction being built for 135,000 square feet of new retail on this corner, very important corner here in Pembroke Pines. And the concern from residents was that a lot of this debris may become dangerous projectile if the winds start to pick up, in case we do get to see tropical storm force winds. The city reached out to us, we reached out to them, they quickly responded to our concerns, and here's what they're telling us about the security of the site.
Based on what you see out here right now, much of the material out here is very, very heavy. They feel confident that the material's in a good place. If you'll notice, they also try to reposition some of their vehicles to kind of surround some of the piles of debris out here for the stuff that couldn't get picked up. They were here late Friday, a little bit into Saturday, trying to secure their site. We feel confident right now that the site, based on what we're seeing, is secure.
The city also telling us that they're in touch with the construction company as well as the developers to make sure they know what Plan B is in case the winds get stronger. Reporting from Pembroke Pines, I'm Hatzel Vela. Local 10 News.
All right, thank you, Hatzel. We will check in with you in just a bit.
And we want to take you back down to the Abaco Islands here in the Bahamas. These images are just coming into our newsroom, and we're showing you what is happening as a result of the eye that passed through. The first part of that eye passed through there just about 12:40, making landfall. A Category 5 storm, the National Hurricane Center calling it catastrophic, and you can see why. The image is certainly living up to that name there. The Prime Minister saying about 73,000 residents are going to be affected by this storm, but some 21,000 homes are going to be impacted as well, and we have seen the devastation that the storm has caused from all of those high winds and, of course, the flooding you see in these pictures.
And this is David Dutton back live in the Channel 1 Atlanta Broadcast Center. It's just about 4:30 on a Sunday afternoon here in Atlanta. You're watching continuing coverage, listening to it anyway, from WPLG in Florida. We'll get back to that in just a moment. We lost the connection there. But in the meantime, the very latest is from the Bahamas, as Dorian is hitting the Bahamas right now. Utter destruction in the Bahamas right now as the storm is moving across the islands. Utter destruction in the Bahamas right now. Reports from one reporter there said, it, quote, "It looks like hell." Several homes and businesses have been destroyed. Catastrophic flooding is being reported. These are the reports coming in after the storm has passed at least one of the islands now. And once again, utter destruction in the Bahamas right now, with winds of 185 gusting to 220 miles per hour as this catastrophic storm is hitting the Bahamas this Sunday afternoon. This, as we continue to wait for a signal to come back from Florida, we're continuing to monitor this again at 4:30 on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you for joining us with our continuing live coverage of this historic storm, one of the strongest hurricanes reported in history, hitting the Bahamas right now, headed toward Florida. Direct impacts on Florida and the southeastern coastline are not expected. However, the storm is just going to linger just off the coastlines of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. And that is still going to be bringing strong gusty winds, heavy rains, and coastal flooding, and all types of weather to the coastlines of the southeast as we go on over the next several days. There is as you see on our weather ticker at the bottom of the screen, a hurricane watch now, in fact, for Deerfield Beach to near Daytona Beach, and a tropical storm warning basically in that same area. I would suspect that as the day goes on, more watches and warnings will be issued further north into Georgia and the Carolinas. However, the storm is slowing down, and so it's going to take some time, actually a couple days, for it to come up the Florida coastline. So those watches and warnings may be delayed a little bit, simply because the storm is slowing down. It's projected to slow down over the Bahamas here, and for about a 24-hour period it's going to stay over or near the Bahamas, and then as it makes that turn back toward the north, and again, as we try to get our signal back from WPLJ there in Florida, we're continuing to monitor this very dangerous storm, again with winds of 185 miles per hour gusting to 220. So now let's take a look at the projective path of the storm if we can. And as we bring up that map, we're going to find, there you see there toward the bottom of the, or the center of the screen, you see those M's. Those are major hurricane markers, and you see where it kind of hangs out there as it is going to make that hard turn to the north near the Florida coastline, and in particular head due north toward the Georgia coastline, and then just barely off the coast of the Carolinas, as it is projected to go back out to sea over the next 5 to 7 days. But we have a long way still to go, and residents along the Florida, Georgia, and Carolina coastlines should continue to closely monitor this storm. And even inland in Florida there, you should still watch this storm very closely, because we have seen over the last several days that this storm has made shifts in forecasts. So you know, we may get a shift back further inland. So please monitor this storm very closely, in particular Florida, at this time, because it's going to take it until Wednesday morning for it to get all the way up to Jacksonville. So we have several, at least 3 days for it to come up the Florida coastline. And so still a long way to go. We're expecting tropical storm force winds at the very least along the eastern Florida coastline would gust to hurricane strength, that's 74 miles per hour. So still some damage, although hopefully not the brunt of this storm. This storm is expected to weaken, if you will, but still be a very strong storm, Category 3, Category 2 hurricane off the northeastern Florida coastline and the Georgia and Carolina coastline as it continues headed toward the north and the northeast through the week. But again, right now we're watching a very dangerous weather situation evolving in the Carolinas. We're already getting reports of destruction, in the Bahamas, where we're already getting reports of destruction, and it's just not looking good there in the Bahamas at this time. We are going to take a quick break for about a minute or two and get our connection straight here with station WPLJ in Florida, and we'll be right back with you.
window. That's the kind of danger. And if you use common sense, stay away from the windows on the windy side of the house, that kind of thing. If you don't have shutters, you don't have hurricane windows, then nobody's going to get hurt from this kind of storm in Dade and Broward. That's why it
When severe weather strikes, the Local 10 News Weather Authority has
Heavy rain potential is definitely.
Chief Certified Meteorologist Betty Davis, Hurricane Specialists Max Mayfield and Brian Norcross, Julie Durden, Luke Doris, the team you trust. Local 10 News.
Concern is with Hurricane Dorian approaching.
Always worry about flooding, so we want to make sure the animals can get up off the ground, and then strong winds just knocking them around and just being difficult for them to manage inside of cages. It's not like where you're in the wild and you can go seek shelter or deal with the winds when you're in the air. These animals are all caged, so nothing will be left outside on property today.
As we come back out to these squirrel enclosures, you can see that they are already in their cages. They are expected to be picked up over the next few minutes by either a volunteer or an employee that will take them home and out of this center. Again, this center will be locked down and shuttered as Hurricane Dorian approaches closer and closer to the Sunshine State.
City parking garages for free. Payment is not required, so it's the Riverwalk Center Garage. Which is formerly City Park Garage. That's at 150 Southeast 2nd Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The other one is the Arts and Science District Garage at the Broward Center, 101 Southwest 5th Avenue. The other one is the Arts and Science District Garage at the Broward Center, 101 Southwest 5th Avenue.
And Las Olas Garage on the beach there, that's at 200 Las Olas Circle. Of course, once again, that's in Fort Lauderdale. So just to remind you here that the city parking garage is free and the payments have been suspended along with the tolls on all of the highways all across the state of Florida.
So as we continue to wait for the 5 o'clock advisory, we know that should be coming down soon. We want to take you back to some images from the Abacos in the Bahamas and just what Hurricane Dorian has been producing on the islands. And you can see the surf, the rough surf, the high winds up to about 180 miles per hour. Our Janice Fernandez is in Marsh Harbor. She's been bringing us as many reports as she can before she had to get to her bunker, her safe zone, which she is in right now. That's why we haven't spoken to her in the last couple of hours, because she's now experiencing the back end of that storm.
And Nicole, we cannot emphasize enough areas and some of the substandard housing areas that that we need to be really concerned about. We heard from a young lady earlier today who did not know her name, but she was holding a 4-month-old baby and talked about how her apartment building had been impacted by the winds of Dorian, had knocked the roof off of her apartment building, just to show you the sheer power and the fury coming from Hurricane Dorian. Sustained winds of 180 miles an hour, making landfall earlier today at about 12:40. And our Janice Fernandez, as you mentioned, is safe right now, but she was in the eye of that storm. And we also heard some audio from her earlier today. She talked about how there was one woman who was sort of swept up in the flooded area, and she was sort of in an area where she could not get out of because it was in a parking lot near the resort hotel where Janice was staying.
And asking for help. And the other woman, Calvin mentioned, she was, holding onto a staircase that it looked like it was now outdoors because the wind had ripped off the roof, asking for prayers. We also heard from officials there in the Bahamas talking about the island as well, saying that everybody comes together to help each other. But as you can see from the video, I mean, we've seen down power lines, down trees, the roofs, as we continue to mention, debris all over, the water rising. Janice even mentioned it.
Feet of water over the Bahamas, more specifically in the northwestern islands.
Couldn't because of all the debris and how strong the winds were.
Yeah, this slow-moving storm expected to dump about 2 feet of water over the Bahamas, more specifically in the northwestern islands there, making landfall earlier today in Elbow Cay, Abacos at 12:40. And then you have the second side of that eye wall making landfall, and that happened about an hour ago. So we're hoping to reconnect with our Janice Fernandez so she can give us some sort of an idea of what life is like right now on the island where she is in Marsh Harbor. But this is an area that is dealing with a catastrophic storm. Those are the words from the National Hurricane Center, a catastrophic category.